Siftpop podcast is recorded in front of a live internet audience.
Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that hates going to the beach even when it isn't wartime. It's Siftpop.
That was the most unpleasant beach ever.
Welcome to Siftpop, streaming live on Mixlr every Friday afternoon, or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks. I'm Aaron Dicer from YourMovieFriend.com, joined by Andrew Ormsby from Flick Freaks.
Ahoy!
We will usually be joined by a pop culture guru to chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. But today, Andrew, it's a duo show.
Duo show.
I'm glad you have your headphones on, because I thought we'd do a little bit of this.
Ooh, what is this?
This is just
just the two of us.
It is just us today, man. This one goes out to my friend Andrew.
We can make it if we try.
Oh yeah, a little bit of Grover Washington Jr. with some Bill Withers. Bill Withers in here as well.
Yeah, it's Bill Withers.
Nice.
Ain't No Sunshine.
I see the crystal raindrops fall and the beauty of it all.
Oh yeah, just the two of us today, Andrew.
Bill Withers is actually one of my favorite musical artists of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what else? What else do you like from him?
Ain't No Sunshine. What's my favorite Bill Withers song besides Ain't No Sunshine?
I mean, he's great.
Lovely Day is a great one.
Oh, here we
also,
go. We can make it, Andrew.
The two of us, you and us.
There you go.
This one's great. Also, everybody has to love Lean on Me.
Of
But
course,
I
of
think
course.
my favorite one is
No worries.
halfway through the show. I'm just going to shout out the name of it. Use Me.
We'll be right in the middle of Dunkirk review. You'll be like, "Use me," and I'll be like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Yep, Use Me is my favorite Bill Withers
What are you
song.
talking about?
Yeah, and you'd be like, "This is an awkward
What
thing."
is happening now? We are going to have a blast today with just the two of us. We are going to, as mentioned, review Dunkirk. We're also going to do a sift sort, which we haven't done in a while.
I love Sift Sorts. They're my favorite segment we do besides the actual reviews.
We're doing the Nolan movies, 9 of them. We're not doing was it Following? Because neither of us have seen it.
Yeah.
So we'll do the other 9 Nolan movies, and we will officially rank those. Of course, we'll have a Sift Quest in there, some buried treasure. But first, we'd like to start it off with some Do We Care?
Every single week, I scour the internet to find out what is going on in the entertainment world, and I pick 3 topics for us to discuss, and we must decide whether or not we care about them or not. Except every now and then, we substitute this segment, we care deeply, in its place.
Yeah, this is a week to do that. There's been some loss this week, for sure.
3 losses that we're going to be discussing. George Romero, the creator of the Zombies franchise as we know it, pretty much.
He basically created a genre of movies.
Exactly, yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Martin Landau, Oscar-winning actor, brilliant. And then just yesterday, very unfortunate, the lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, took his own life in a tragic suicide.
Where do you want to start with this? You want to start with Romero? Because
he was the first of the week.
I will depend on you on this one. I'm not a zombie film guy, so I'm like not a huge Romero, knowledge. I don't have a lot of that stuff. I just know that he...
Night of the Living Dead.
Right. I mean, I know that he did those things. Sure. It's just not, one of my favorite things. Yeah. So
it was really upsetting, but then again, I think he'd been battling lung cancer for a very long time, and the fact that he's an old gentleman. I think he was in his 80s or 70s, but it's just sad, because he'd done so much, and like you said, he created a genre of movies.
Yeah.
So he is one of the best storytellers in that sense, that, he's pioneered stories from so many different... There wouldn't be The Walking Dead, there wouldn't be any of the zombie video games, we wouldn't have World War Z, the books, if it wasn't for George Romero.
It's really interesting to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to kind of think of how one person can have that kind of direct, butterfly flapping its wings impact on, an entire industry.
Exactly.
So, yeah, totally.
It was really sad. And then a couple hours after that, we lost Martin Landau.
Yeah, it was right back to back. I remember watching my Twitter feed, and both of them happened like really close to each other. Now, Landau has been in so much stuff. I immediately go to North by Northwest.
Because you love Hitchcock.
I love Hitchcock movies, and he is so great in that movie. And he's one of those actors that just kept working, and I love that. I love that you can see him in movies like Rounders, movies like Frankenweenie, plays a voice in that. The Majestic. He was in The Majestic. Do you remember that Jim Carrey movie?
Was he in The Majestic?
Yes. Yeah. So he was in the X-Files movie as well. So yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff, even as he continued to age as an actor, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And then just yesterday, terrible news. We lost Chester Bennington. I love Linkin Park, or I shouldn't say I loved Linkin Park whenever I was younger, like whenever Hybrid Theory came out.
Mm-hmm.
And, In the End was like the biggest song of like the couple years everybody loved In the End. And man, that was just so sad because I hadn't listened to their music as of late, like their last couple albums, and maybe a couple of songs here or there on the radio. But apparently he had some childhood traumas that, led to this, and it's just so sad that he...
See, I didn't know about the childhood traumas part. And again, I depend on you. I'm not a Linkin Park fan. It just missed me. Probably growing up in such a conservative home. I wasn't listening to anything but Christian music really when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I heard, I heard suicide.
Yeah.
And I heard depression was a big part of it as well. And that's, man, it's so hard.
I heard from multiple people on this. Now, these aren't sources, but there are multiple people who I saw. So I hope that I'm not misquoting or saying, falsities here, but I heard it was childhood abuse whenever he was younger. And if that's
that
true,
led to depression and those kind of things. Yeah, sure.
Which he had 6 children that he left behind, which is also... It's just so sad.
It is very sad. And the thing I continue to see, which I jump right on the train, is get help. If you can find a way to get help, get help. There's no shame in it. There's no weakness in it. There's, if you are struggling with depression or any kind of mental issue, seek somebody out who can point you in the right direction, get you some help. It's just, there's so many suicide prevention hotlines, so many, different ways that you can go to find somebody to talk to. And find a better way.
Yeah, because I know as soon as this happened, our friends over at CinemaSins, because I know it's not Chris or Jeremy who... Barrett was the one who's worked with suicide prevention in the past.
Yep.
And he's
That's
studied.
His background. Mm-hmm.
So him and Jeremy were both tweeting out, suicide prevention online help and stuff like that. So yes, if you do need help, there is always hope. Please go and look at that stuff, because I've lost family members to suicide, so whenever this happened, it kind of hit home with, that kind of stuff. So
yeah. I actually haven't had suicide touch my life in that way, and, I'm thankful for that personally, so I don't know the depth of that sting and that pain like a lot of people, including yourself, do. All I can say is, that I hurt for you, and I hurt for his family, and I hurt, even though I don't know it to my core, I feel so awful that they're feeling it to their core right now. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
So yeah, it's been a week of loss in that way, and it seems like it kind of happens in bunches like that sometimes.
Yeah. So next week, whenever we do the Do Week here, it's going to be a wrap up of Comic-Con.
Oh, okay, nice.
Because
I'll appreciate that. That'll help me.
It goes on right now, and it's going to be continuing on for the next couple days. I didn't want to have partial news.
Sure, no, totally.
So
yeah, absolutely get that. Well, let's move on then to our review of Dunkirk.
Where are we going? Dunkirk. I'm not going back. There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
Dunkirk, directed by Christopher Nolan, takes place in 1940. Germany is advancing into France and has trapped Allied troops on the beaches of Dunkirk. Under air and ground cover from British and French forces, troops were slowly and methodically evacuated from the beach. It's kind of a look at that situation. Let's talk about it a little bit. We always like to start with, did you like it, love it, dislike it, hated it, or it was just okay? Andrew, you go first.
Aaron, don't hate me.
Yeah.
I didn't love this movie.
Okay.
I didn't really like this movie. I just liked it.
So it was just okay, or at the bottom end of liked it?
Just liked it.
Okay.
Not really liked it, didn't love it, and it's a Christopher Nolan movie, and I know there are going to be people out there who's like, how can you not love everything this man does? But
Well, this is interesting you say that. So are you expecting me to, like, scream to the heavens, loved it? Like, is that what you're thinking is going to happen? Because you're apologizing to me.
Yeah.
This is why it's so good that you don't watch my reviews. I'm right there with you.
Oh, my God.
I have been amazed because after I do my YouTube review, that's when I go and look at what other people have said.
Yeah.
And I have been blown away by how rapturous people are praising this movie because...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it had like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, and people are calling it the best war film of all time, the best Nolan movie of all time. And I'm just going, I don't know that that's the movie I saw. I will say, I get why they're saying that, but I think it has some really big flaws that mean a lot to me that maybe don't mean a lot to them.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can kind of wrap my brain around it. I think this is one that, like, the high-minded critics are going to praise to high heavens, and then, like, the normies, like us, are going to be like, but it's not a great movie. Yeah.
It's
so
good.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's good, because there is a lot here that's not only good, there's a lot here that is great.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and start off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The film nails its delivery of giving off this air of hopelessness and constant danger. Never once, from the beginning of this movie to the end of this movie, do you think that these characters are safe?
Right. They're very tense.
Yeah.
Very good.
They could be just standing in the line, just waiting for something, and you're like, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And then as soon as something does happen, you're like, well, something again is just right around the corner.
That's right.
They're never safe.
Yeah. No, that's true. The tone is... This is what I've said, and I'll go ahead and jump off that to say this about the pros of the movie. Technically, it's spectacular. The visuals in this are absolutely stunning. That's what builds a lot of that tension, what builds a lot of that tone that you're talking about. The sound design is incredible.
I was going to say, that's
movie.
the best thing about this movie is the sound design. The sound of those Stuka dive bombers flying in, because you never hear it, and then everybody starts looking up, and then you can faintly hear it coming.
Yeah.
And it just gets louder and louder. It is one of the most terrifying sounds, because I don't know if you knew this, those Stuka German bombers, they actually put horns on the front of their planes that actually makes that sound. It's a psychological warfare, so that it's a horn that makes that sound. It's supposed to terrify the troops.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that, and that I guess that makes a lot of sense. There's also throughout almost all of this movie some, I don't know that I want to give this away. Maybe we'll talk about it in spoilers, but in the sound there is particular use of certain sounds that build tension and build momentum through the entire movie. I thought it was genius. And it's also genius in the fact that we're dealing with a movie, like a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, that plays around with time, so it's just, there's some really smart things done with the technical aspects of this movie. I also think the performances were really good. I feel like, these are good actors doing good work. We'll get into the negatives, and there are some big negatives that I think keep the performances from being great. But I think for what they're asked to do, they're doing a good job. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. What other pros did you have? Is that it?
That was it.
Okay, I do want to talk about this. I mentioned it briefly. I like how Christopher Nolan creatively uses time. And I like what he did here. Now, there are some negative consequences to what he does here.
That was a negative for me, actually.
Yeah, and I totally... And it is for me, too, except that I like the effort. Is that okay? Can I give points for effort? I like what he tried to do here. I just don't know that it totally succeeds.
Yeah. I think it comes off as sloppy. Like, it wasn't fine-tuned, I guess is a better way to say it. If it was more finely tuned in the way that it was edited and put together, I would have appreciated it more. But the way it stands in this film, it makes it a little too confusing.
Yep, I agree.
Probably I hope that's not what they're wanting to do, is get multiple views so you understand it more. I think that for people who only want to watch a movie once, you have to deliver for them.
Yep.
And this movie, for me, doesn't. Because it got really confusing, because I'm like, okay, so when is this taking place?
Yeah.
When is this taking place? I don't mind a movie not being linear.
Right.
I'm fine with that. It's just it
has to be understood.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm totally on the same page with you. What I had said was, I think Christopher Nolan knows exactly what's happening here and just doesn't realize he's not portraying it in a way that somebody who isn't as aware of the events as he is could be confused by it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of those things where he was too close to the material to realize he wasn't editing it in a clear way for an audience in that way. The other positive I will say before we kind of dig into more negatives is I love this story. I love the story of Dunkirk. Like I really do think there's something beautiful and poetic and interesting about this group of soldiers trapped on this beach and what people went through to make sure they could make it across the English Channel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful story, and he has that going for him in the movie as well.
One of my negatives is that it is about the characters in this movie. It's that I do feel terror and fear for these people as a whole. Mm-hmm. I don't feel terror and a sense of dread for a character particularly. Correct. Like, there's a scene, the film, we've said before, it's very sparing with its dialogue.
Yes.
And I know that's intentional because I think the movie's supposed to give off the unnamed heroes. You're not supposed to care about a single person. You're supposed to care about everybody.
Yeah, it's purpose. He's doing it purposeful. Yeah. I just think it's the wrong choice.
Exactly, yeah.
Because for me, I gotta have story. Like, I have to know these. Like, there is... these might as well be anonymous soldiers. There is no backstory. We don't know anything about them. We don't have reasons to hold on to care about them other than they're human beings, which that should be enough. But when you're telling a story in a movie, like, give me something to feel their loss if they die. Yeah. Like, if they end up not making it, I need something to hold on to feel the emotional impact of that. And I didn't have that with any of these characters.
Name one character's name.
No, I can't.
I can name one. George, the little kid on the boat.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know a single person's name in this movie.
And again, I think that's intentional.
It is intentional.
I think he is purposefully taking a broad look at this story. I was thinking today, it may be the best, most brilliant, most technically achieved historical reenactment of all time.
Yeah.
But it is not a great movie. It is a great historical reenactment.
Yeah.
Which is different. That's not what I want to see when I go see a story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's what movies are. They're stories being portrayed. This is as close to a documentary you can get without actually having the cameras on the beach back then.
Yeah, but I feel like it's such a waste, right? Because he did so much with making this feel so real and making us feel like we're there, and yet at the same time, we don't get to really feel we don't get to really put ourselves in their shoes because we don't know who their shoes are.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
because
yeah.
For me, that's what I go to watch movies for. It's the immersive putting myself in somebody else's shoe and to live vicariously through them.
Yeah.
But I have to have something within a character that I can say, that's me. I can now live vicariously through them. But I don't know enough about these characters for me to go, wait, which one am I?
Yeah.
Am I a spectator? If I'm a spectator, then it puts a barrier between me and the caring aspect of what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it makes sense to me. I had the exact same experience. And I walk away from it. I just walk away from it going, oh, and here's the thing. It stands in juxtaposition to how we have done too far the other way. Think of the movie. This is what
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. I tweeted, right after the movie. It's the opposite of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Because in Pearl Harbor...
Which is a big pro.
It is in many ways, right? But I think it goes too far the other way, right? Where Pearl Harbor, it takes the big event and just leaves it in the background and then wants you to focus on this relationship. Titanic does the same thing. Titanic is very similar in that way. And so we have over-romanticized the individual story to the detriment of telling the historical story. And I think what Nolan does here is the opposite. He overtells the big story at the expense of the small story.
Yeah. Or I like the movie.
Yeah.
I like the movie.
I'd even say I really like the movie. Yeah. I think I gave it like a B+. Like, I really did think it was a great movie. It's just, it could have been transcendent.
I don't know if I ever want to watch it again, though.
And this goes back to it, right? Like, what would be the reason to watch it again?
Yeah.
I mean, other than just, I guess, maybe trying to understand the timeline better.
That can be the only reason I could see watching this movie again. People are asking, what about Harry Styles? Harry Styles did fine. I mean, he's not any worse or better than anybody else on screen.
Again, everybody on screen, I think, does what they're asked to do.
Yeah.
And it's just not what Andrew and I would have preferred.
Exactly.
In a movie-going experience.
Man, people saying this is the best Nolan movie ever. Good for them, but I just don't get it. I don't ever
It'll be interesting.
I'm never going to tell anybody they're wrong for liking a movie.
it's interesting because I feel like War for the Planet of the Apes does more with character development and understanding character with CG apes than this movie did, the entire movie with actual human beings. So in an actual war that was a true story, So yeah, that's a little bit rough. Man, it sounds like we totally agree on this one. Had almost identical experiences.
I did not. I thought you were going to rag on me for not loving this movie.
No, again, I think this is one that what I've seen from the some of the more artsy critics is because it's a piece of art in many ways. You know what I mean? And that's definitely going to click some buttons for a lot of people. So it
reminded me in the sense of like you look at like Apocalypse Now or something like that. It's a war art film. Mm-hmm. Or Thin Red Line is another good example, That's a
great example. I didn't like Thin Red Line either.
Where it's an art piece in a war setting.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie. Man, is this a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
And especially that sound design. For me, again, sound design is hands down the best part of this entire movie.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But
I'm a story person. I want to care about characters. I want to put myself in their shoes. I want to know why I care about them and this movie does not offer any of that purposefully. Again, let's just say this. Yeah. Not an accident. It's not like, oh, oops, we left out the character development. I really believe this was Nolan's intention. And props for that. Yeah. But I think there are going to be people coming away from this going, that was interesting, but I just don't care.
It's because I'm looking at my Sift sort list right now, and all of the top movies, the best part about those movies are his characters. Yeah. And how him and his brother Jonathan. I know Jonathan didn't work on this one. I think Christopher wrote and directed this one. But the way that they create their characters and you care about their characters so much, and that they totally don't do that in this one. That's my one last thing. Nolan should stick to what he knows, because what he knows, he is the best of all time at.
I don't think I have one more. I think I covered everything I wanted to say.
Cool.
It's unfortunate, right? And I think I was looking at the live chat a little bit too, and it's interesting because...
Are they hating on us?
Well, a little bit, but more saying, I agree with everything you're saying, except for I have a different perspective. In other words, and I think that's going to be common with this movie. I think everybody can agree on what Nolan was doing here.
Our pros are their cons.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some people will respect that in a different way and enjoy the experience in a different way than you and I did, which was to be like, I wanted more. I didn't come away caring about it, and I need to care, you know, and I just didn't. So, which is rough when there's 400,000 people's lives on the line. I probably should care whether I know who's waiting for home with them or not. But
And please don't think that us not absolutely loving this movie translates to us not caring about the sacrifices of the soldiers.
Oh, I don't think anybody would do that.
You don't know the internet, Aaron.
Let me introduce you to the internet.
Yes. And also for the fact that we don't absolutely love this movie does not mean we didn't like it.
See, listen, I actually tweeted that today. This has been a year for that for me. Logan was the same way, a movie I really like, but everybody else was over the moon for.
I was over the moon for.
Get Out was another one that I really like, but everybody else was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And now Dunkirk. I just feel like this is the year of me giving great grades to movie and people thinking I hate them.
There was another movie. A movie that I didn't like that you absolutely love was Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, it's just it's an interesting year for movies. That's what it is.
Yeah, which is good. I like interesting years. Yeah. I like interesting movies, so that's good stuff. All right, you want to go on to the Sift sort?
I am so excited for this.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. So Sift sort, we're going to do Christopher Nolan movies. We have to agree on an official Siftpop Christopher Nolan ranking.
Are you going to type these up, or do you need me to
I've got them right here, man.
Okay, but I mean for the official list, are you going to be typing up the
official? I will be changing them as we make them official. So I have my list here, and then I will cut and paste stuff around as we make them official. We go from the bottom up. We're doing 9 Christopher Nolan movies. We're not doing following.
Yeah.
Because neither of us have seen it. But we will do the other 9, rank them from number 9 to number 1, and we have to agree. So let's start with number 9.
Again, I like every single one of these movies. Just because it's ranked lower doesn't mean that we don't absolutely love it. Number 9, I have Insomnia.
I think that's a good choice at number 9.
Okay.
Again, it's a good movie, and Robin Williams is great in it.
I love the fact that it's not your, it's not your, what am I trying to say? It's not your normal Robin Williams kind of
He's
role.
not his manic comic kind of Robin Williams at all in this movie.
It's a 1 hour photo Robin Williams.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I actually kind of got those two mixed up in my brain.
Really?
A lot, yeah, because those are very similar Robin Williams performances.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting film. It's one definitely worth watching, I think.
Yeah, I love crime dramas, and this is definitely an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
I never read the book, which is a Stephen King book, in case people don't know that. In the book,
I didn't know that, actually.
A very different book. The book is actually sci-fi.
In the book, he actually gets to sleep really easy.
Yes.
He doesn't have insomnia at all.
Yeah.
It's actually called Somnia.
Yeah. It's called Sleepy Time.
Sleepy Time. Okay,
so you're okay with Insomnia at number 9?
Yeah, let's put Insomnia at number 9. Lock it in.
All right. Number 8, what do you have?
Dark Knight Rises.
I have that at 7. So, okay.
So right there, I have Batman Begins at 7. I have the two Batman movies right there at 7 and 8.
At 8, I actually have Dunkirk.
Yeah, my Dunkirk's near there for me as well.
I'm okay with putting The Dark Knight Rises at 7, or at 8.
At 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do that. That's fine.
All right, lock in The Dark Knight Rises at 8. Again, it's a fine movie. You know, finishes off his Dark Knight trilogy. I think it deals with some action issues. I don't know that he shoots the action in that movie very well. Yeah. And so there's, some tension lost at a few different places. Plus, it's a huge letdown from, The Dark Knight.
I don't know what you're talking about, Aaron.
I've come for you, Gotham.
You think darkness is your ally?
We didn't mention that Tom Hardy basically plays Bane in Dunkirk as well. Might as well have been Bane.
Yeah.
I don't know. So okay, let's lock in Dark Knight Rises at number 8.
Okay.
Then we can put Dunkirk at number 7. I'm fine with that if you want to move it down.
Okay. And number 6, I have Batman Begins.
And that's where I have Batman Begins. So I think Dunkirk's a better movie than Batman Begins. Okay. But I'm willing to move those around. They're pretty close for me.
Okay. Number 5, what do you have?
Well, let's talk a little bit about Batman Begins.
Okay,
before we just kind of cruise on by it.
It started everything, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such a really good movie because I did not see the Ra's al Ghul / Ra's al Ghul, however you want to say, the twist coming.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And I love the fact that Cillian Murphy, is that how you say his name?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Brilliant Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only character, I think, besides Bruce Wayne who is in he's in the whole trilogy.
Yeah.
I think he is.
He's
also
Alfred. He's also in Dunkirk as well.
He is in Dunkirk. Cillian just loves working with Christopher Nolan, and for good reason.
Scarecrow and Bane making an appearance in Dunkirk.
Yeah.
What if we found out this was in the Batman universe?
Whoa! And that's I just thought of something really dark, that Bane and Scarecrow are actually just shell-shocked World War II survivors.
That's right.
Yeah.
From the Battle of Dunkirk. That's how they turned.
Exactly. But no, yeah, I think it's really good. And it just sets up, because we just came off of the Joel Schumacher Batman movies.
Right. Very,
goofy and quirky.
Yeah, yeah.
And before Batman Begins, he hadn't done too many movies where, Christopher Nolan I'm talking about, where you'd think like, oh, well, this guy can definitely do a Batman movie.
Right.
But he so does.
Yeah.
Like, he nails Batman in a way I'd never thought, because he made Batman real.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the Batman universe, which they're going now with this DCEU, is that there's a supernatural element to it. Everything in Nolan's Batman universe is grounded in reality.
Yeah.
It's an extreme version of reality, but it's not mystical and it's not supernatural.
Right.
And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah. I really remember feeling like, oh, okay, this is how you can do Batman in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that that's possibly going to happen again with Matt Reeves taking over the new Batman. Mm-hmm. If he can really find his own voice and bring it to... That's why I wasn't as upset, about him ditching the Affleck script, because I want it to be his vision. I really do, because I think that's how you get the best films, is you let a director really make the film they want to make. So I'm interested to see if, Batman can even have another new look at what that character can be like on film. So, but yeah, you're right. This started a whole new idea of what superhero movies could be. So, absolutely. Number 5 then, because we put Dunkirk at number 6, and we already kind of talked about that and our dissatisfaction with that a little bit. But again, still, right in the middle of the Nolan pack.
Yep. Number 5, I have Interstellar.
Okay. All right. I have Memento.
I have Memento a little bit higher. I have it at number 3.
Okay, and I have Interstellar at number 4. So we've kind of got them both right in that area.
What do you? I have.
I
have number 4 as your number 1.
I believe that Interstellar is a better movie than Memento, especially upon multiple watch of that movie. And a lot of that has to do with just he's working out just early director stuff in Memento. Just little stuff about editing. Conceptually, it's brilliant.
There's never been or ever will be a movie like Memento again.
That's a big thing to say. I don't know if I'd agree with it. I think somebody could figure something out, but it certainly locked him into this idea of being a creative. Like M.C. Escher is, kind of the painter that paints, staircases that go both up and down. That's
which
kind of
there's a pretty good callback to in Inception.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm okay putting Memento above Interstellar because I have them close. If you want to put Interstellar at number 5, but I think Memento should probably.
I think I might go with you on that one.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking about it. So at number 5 we would have Memento, and number 4 Interstellar.
Correct.
Okay.
That would be correct.
My number 4 was The Prestige, which I think is your number 1.
Yeah, I'm going to fight for that to be higher for sure.
Okay, so then my other 2, I guess for number 3 would be.
Well, let's not run past Interstellar. We haven't really talked about it, too much. We've got that at number 4, right?
I guess we should, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit about what people did and didn't like about that movie. That's one of those movies where, unlike Dunkirk, where I something stuck and I couldn't get past it. Like Interstellar, I was able to get past any of the negatives and just fall in love with that movie.
But negatives, are you talking about change, like the ending? Because
yes,
I know people
like the
don't
time stuff and just in that stuff. You can't think about it too much, or it starts to fall apart. All that kind of stuff. I was able just to leave that kind of in its own space and just fall in love with the story of that movie. In the way it's portrayed. McConaughey is
so good,
fabulous in that movie. Oh.
He made me cry twice in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, cry hard twice in the movie. That scene, everybody should have seen Interstellar by now. But the scene when they come back from the wave planet and 22 years had gone by, and he's just watching his kids grow up, like in a montage, is one of the most heartbreaking things ever. And I don't even have kids.
Yeah, so Interstellar is great. And, man, I kind of just want to go watch it again.
I do too. Oh, here's another thing. Going back to Dunkirk, just real quick. Something that every single Nolan movie that's in my top has is a brilliant score. And a lot of that has to do with Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Dunkirk doesn't really have that. And I know that's intentional. Again, we talked about the intentional stuff in Dunkirk that people love, that I kind of miss from old Nolan. And maybe that's just my issue, is holding on to what Nolan that I love, that he just doesn't bring, and he's trying something new and people praise him for it, but at the same time, like, man, but he's so good at it.
Yeah.
Bring that Hans Zimmer score in, get that blahs going that I absolutely love.
There's a little bit of that in Dunkirk in the background. I liked the score in Dunkirk. I thought it was pretty good.
I can't remember it.
I'm gonna need to give it a re-listen, but I do remember there was some of that building, and I think it adds to the tension.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm with you. I love the Hans Zimmer scores of all these movies. How high are you willing to go with Prestige, since you had it at number 4? Like, what are you willing to put below it? I mean, it was my number 1. You're correct about that. I think it's almost a perfect film.
Right now, I guess we're fighting for my number 1 and your number 1.
Which is your number 1, Inception or Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight.
Okay, so you've got Dark Knight at number 1.
I'm okay with... Okay, so I think I would be okay with putting Inception at number 3, and then we can discuss which one would be number 1.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I've got Inception. We both got Inception at number 2 in our respective lists, right?
Yeah,
right?
I have it at number 2.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and put Inception at number 3.
Okay. Let's talk about it then.
Yeah, absolutely. In this movie, man.
I just love the look on your face because you just looked exhausted.
I did. I just went through the entire movie in my brain. Just the way he plays with time. And this is another reason Dunkirk maybe didn't work perfectly for me, because it's almost the same magic trick he pulls so much better in Inception, right? It's the idea of, I don't want to spoil it again. I don't necessarily want to talk about it totally until spoilers, but he deals with time in a way that you're dealing with processing time differently at different scenes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So he already pulled that trick brilliantly with Inception, and to watch him do I guess he pulled the exact same trick with Interstellar, except actually based it on like the science of gravity and gravitational pulls and those kind of things. But the idea of going down a level and each going down a level and then wondering, were we always in a dream state? Like right from the very beginning, and just kind of the way it plays with your mind. And man, he's so good at that stuff. And then beyond that, you've just got a great, fun, cool story with amazing characters that you want to see what's going to happen.
Incredibly unique. And the best thing about Inception is it has sparked so many fan theories, and the fan theories are just as entertaining as the movie itself. And the fact that this was the movie that introduced me to Tom Hardy, and I think it did for a lot of people. I know he did Bronson, but I hadn't seen Bronson until after this. So I was like, man, this guy's great. I got to go back and watch all the things that he did. And now he's like one of the biggest stars in Hollywood.
Yeah.
This first time I'd ever seen, is it the only time that DiCaprio's worked with Nolan?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah. Man, those two were made for each other. They really were. I absolutely adore Inception. You say you're going to watch Interstellar later? I'm going to watch Inception later.
Yeah, I may just watch them all. You may not see me for a week. I may just fall into a Nolan hole.
Yeah. All right. I'm curious where you had The Dark Knight. At number 3?
I had it at number 3, yeah.
Okay. Let's discuss both, and then we can decide which one's number 1.
Sure, absolutely.
Because I can honestly see both of them. Honestly, I had The Dark Knight at number 1, but I can honestly see both of them being number 1.
I think The Dark Knight, for me, is obviously a phenomenal film that rides, for me, so high on the list a lot because of Heath Ledger's performance. You know, that Joker was something so definitive, so visceral, you know, something we hadn't seen in a comic book movie before, a villain that captivating and so unexpected. People forget who Heath Ledger was before that movie.
Yeah, he was the rom-com guy.
Right. Like, you know.
I mean, he did do Brokeback Mountain, I think, the year before.
Well, sure, but even that performance is, you know, based in a more...
Don't call Brokeback Mountain a rom-com.
I was going to emphasize the rom part.
It's a rom, but it's not a comedy.
But it was more, I was going to say, had a more of a personable motif to it. So even his character in that is, likable in that way. To see him be completely vile in the way that he was, and just to capture it so amazingly. Like that's when I think of The Dark Knight. That's what I think of. I think of that Joker performance. And beyond that, everything to me that I like about that movie stems from interaction with that performance. And beyond that, I don't see a lot of the other things. So remind me of those things.
So you're totally right. This movie is 100% Heath Ledger Joker. Mm-hmm. That is it's one of, not even joking, it's one of the greatest performances.
Not even joking. I get it.
Unintentional. It is one of the greatest performances. It will go down in history as one of the greatest performances.
Yes.
But do not shy away from the other phenomenal performances in that movie. Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent.
He's really good.
Is so good. No,
yes, he's really good.
I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he was in that movie. His transition from being the savior of Gotham to one of its most infamous crime villains. Like I so believed every single part of that transition.
Yes.
And the thing I love about this movie is in an interview, and I know this isn't a part of the movie.
Sure. No, that's fine.
It was a Christian Bale interview. He wanted to do a more dark and gritty Batman. He wanted to be like, as the movies progress, like throughout linearly, he wanted Batman to become more and more just violent. But he said, after Heath Ledger gave his performance, I couldn't, because it totally changed the landscape, because he was expecting along the lines of what Jack Nicholson did.
Sure, yeah.
And then whenever he came in and did what he did, he's like, well, I can't do it now. Because you can't have a dark and violent Batman with a Joker like this.
Yeah.
They wouldn't mix well together. So I actually saw that conflict. And I also saw the conflict of Bruce Wayne going, how can I stop this monster
without becoming him?
Without becoming him. And that's the whole part of the movie.
That's the whole theme of the movie.
Live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Right. And there's so many memorable scenes. Like the fight choreography is one of the things that I don't think Nolan understands, because it's a lot of shaky, quick cuts.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, because I think Batman would really lend itself to being a really cool, like John Wick style of fighting.
Yes.
The bank heist at the beginning of this movie. There's the semi truck fight.
Right.
Every single scene where the Joker is hatching a plot is one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
And then moving on to The Prestige now.
Yeah, just to address what you said, I totally agree with you. There's so many memorable scenes, and I feel like the only thing that's missing in this movie is to tighten up that story to where everything impacts the story in a greater way. Like the thing I see with Prestige, and we can move into it now, is everything in this movie from second one to second none at the end is telling the story in a tight, particular way to lead you to the magic trick. So it is a movie about magic tricks and how magic tricks work, and at the same time a movie that is doing a magic trick on you. And that meta narrative blew my mind. Like, in every consecutive time I've watched it, it's fabulous to watch his sleight of hand in a movie about sleight of hand.
Absolutely.
And that's what gets me about The Prestige. Like, overall, like, if I had to go, this is the best thing why I love this movie more than the others.
My favorite thing about The Prestige is that it's a period piece, obviously. And so the tricks that they're doing to us, and I've said this before on this podcast, the tricks that they do in this movie seem, I don't want to say amateur, but at the same time, back in the day, those tricks are otherworldly mind-blowing, and that they were able to portray that and make me believe that those tricks were mind-blowing at the same time.
Right.
It's a ball bouncing from one door to another, not to give too much away.
Right, yeah.
But that sounds so simple, but back in the day, you're thinking, oh, that's the greatest. And they even say, Hugh Jackman's famous line in the movie, it was the greatest trick I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you think, it is the greatest trick he's ever seen, and you believe it now. And I've said this before, it is the first movie that ever made me immediately buy a ticket to go and watch a second time.
Yeah.
Because of the twist of that movie.
Of the mini twists of that movie.
The mini twist of that movie. And David Bowie was great as Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was weird because earlier we were talking about Andy Serkis. And I was thinking, man, Andy Serkis should do a movie with Christopher Nolan. And then I just realized he did.
Yeah.
He was in The Prestige.
He was.
So thanks, Andrew's brain. You were lagging on that one. But he was in The Prestige as Tesla's assistant. And man, I think that
Hugh Jackman's incredible in it.
Who do you like more performance-wise?
Bale or Jackman?
Yeah.
I think I like Michael Caine's performance more.
I use as a double. I use as a double.
It's just, I love that performance. There's a brutality in Caine's perspective of the world, which I think is genius to what's going on in that movie, and comes back later towards the end as we finish up and understand what's truly going on in this world. Between Jackman and Bale, I slightly like Bale's performance better.
That's interesting. I like Hugh Jackman's a little bit more.
They're so close for me, but I just, there's something really mischievous about Bale's performance that lays right under the surface that is really cool, and there's something very slightly arrogant under Jackman's performance that lays under the surface, and both of them are doing such a great job at defining those things, but at the same time not being defined by those things.
Yeah.
It's beautiful work on both their parts.
Again, a non-linear movie.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if I just realized this or I'm just remembering it now. A lot of people think about how Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale are at odds with each other and that they're trying to one-up each other. I think a case could be made that Michael Caine and David Bowie are at odds with each other unknowingly.
Yes.
They don't know that they're competing against each other.
Right.
But they are.
Yeah. It goes to, there's stuff in there that mirrors that with Tesla in general too, with him being smarter than Edison, who
he's running away from in this movie.
Right, yeah. So I love all the interplay of all that stuff, how poetic and metaphorical it is, the meta narrative, all that stuff. That's the reason why I would have it at number one.
Yeah.
So where do we arrive, Andrew? Who's going to give up the fight?
I might give up the fight.
Yeah, I just think that's right. I think The Prestige is better than The Dark Knight.
I will always have The Dark Knight as the greatest comic book movie of all time.
Right. And here's what you can say. And I think actually I saw this in the chat. Somebody said, I actually like The Dark Knight better, but The Prestige may be a better movie. If that makes sense. Yeah. Like, it's more of like The Dark Knight is your favorite, but if we come to this official ranking and we put The Prestige first, can you be happy with that?
I can't think of anything I don't like about The Prestige. I can think of one or maybe one minor flaw in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give up. I'll concede.
All right,
I'll
there
concede.
it is. Lock it in. Dark Knight at number 2, Prestige at number 1.
Would you mind reading off the whole list?
Nolan, you have been sift sorted.
I will say this. 5 of those 9 movies are in my top 100 movies of all time. Starting with Interstellar, The Prestige, Memento, Inception, and The Dark Knight.
Wow. I have to make those last few changes here on the list. Here's the official list. Number 9, Insomnia. Number 8, The Dark Knight Rises. Number 7, Dunkirk. Number 6, Batman Begins. Number 5, Memento. Number 4, Interstellar. Number 3, Inception. Number 2, The Dark Knight. And number 1, The Prestige. Well done, Mr. Andrew. Well done.
It's a good list. It's a really good list.
It's a great list. Can you imagine making 9 movies that good? Insomnia is a great movie.
I can't even imagine making one of those movies that good.
Yeah, no, that's a good list. Well done, Christopher Nolan.
He could have made Memento and retired.
That's right.
And hey, I made an amazing movie, guys. Try and top that.
I'm out. Before we get on to our Sift Quest, I want to remind you can support what goes on here at Siftpop by supporting the Studio DNA Podcast Network. Fun stuff going on the network. New Music Digest came back. It's now a Wednesday show that you can listen to live or subscribe to. Just search for New Music Digest in your podcast player. By the way, if you search for Studio DNA in your podcast player, you should see all the Studio DNA podcasts. So It's a nice way to find them if you want to do it that way. Also, the month of August is Studio DNA Gives Back Month. We are donating 100% of all support for the month of August to a good cause. We're going to announce that cause here shortly as we head up to the month of August. So
on the podcast or shortly, like in the future?
In the future, here in the next week or so.
Okay, I was confused there for a second. I was like, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So here's the thing. If you already support the network, every dollar you give for your August support is already going towards that good cause. If you want to give more, simply up your pledge for August. And then if you want to bring it back down for September, that's fine. We're going to set a goal for what to raise for this month. And there will be many people, I'm sure, who will say, you know what, for August, I'm going to give $50 or I'm going to give $100 or whatever. And then you can just bring that back down for September. So we're going to be doing that all August month long on all Studio DNA podcasts, including Siftpop. And we look forward to you being a part of that. Big thank you to Sean, who is a new donor at $5 a month. Thank you, Sean. And Foster, a new donor at $3 a month. Thank you, Foster, for supporting Studio DNA. Some really fun perks there for your support. Go check it out at patreon.com/StudioDNA. All right, on to the Sift Quest, Andrew. This one comes from Twitter, from Frank Kemp, a good friend on Twitter. And he had tweeted me about some things, and I asked him if we could use it as a Sift Quest. Sift Quest, of course, is where we go on a quest from you. It can be a question you have, a topic you want us to discuss, a debate you want us to settle. Just send it to feedback@siftpop.com or tweet at us. Frank on Twitter says, I caught The Big Sick last night and loved it. It takes a lot for a movie to come close to getting a reaction out of me. I don't know if it was because I was the only one in the theater, but having so many experiences in hospitals, losing people and almost losing my wife and 2 of my daughters in the hospital, losing my sister, making the hard decisions, I cried easily 10 times during the movie. What's one of your most personal movie-going experiences? And I think we've all kind of been there when a movie kind of cuts through just the storytelling into your own life and hits you in that way. And I can imagine having gone through everything that Frank's gone through to see a movie like The Big Sick, would do that. What's one for you, Andrew? Something that you took very personally when you watched it?
I can't think of one. Honestly, I think that, to that extreme, where I'm like,
sure. Well, even maybe on a lesser level.
But what I'm saying is, I can't think of a movie that I've seen where I'm like, oh man, this is me. I think the closest I can come to, and this is it's a pretty good stretch.
Yeah.
It's a movie called Hachi. I just lost my dog about a year ago today, almost. So it's been about a year. And Hachi is a super sad dog movie. Watching that movie brought back all those emotions of losing my dog, which was probably the hardest moment of my entire life.
I think that's a great example, and I know a lot of people deal with that. There are a lot of those pet loss movies for a reason, because that is something that a lot of us have gone through. Our pets don't live as long as we do, so.
And it's actually kind of different than a pet loss movie, but it reminded me of the loss, is what it is. So it's not a very well-known movie, but it's a very, very sad movie.
Absolutely. I can go a couple different directions with this. I've talked about most of these films I'm going to mention before. If we go faith-wise, like based on, my beliefs and my faith, Passion of the Christ was very personal to me. To see the Jesus story like that brutal and that realistic and authentic to what it probably was like, obviously really impacted me because of what I believe about that person and what that person means to me. Faith-wise, also, interestingly enough, M. Night Shyamalan's The Village was an interesting movie that was very personal to me because coming from a faith background, you deal with a lot of judgmentalism, you deal with a lot of tribalism, where everybody outside of our tribe is evil or doing bad or whatever. And in that movie, she finally escapes from her tribe. And again, I don't mind giving this away. It's been a while. But she meets people outside of her own group, and they're not awful monsters. They're like really nice people. And it's just a reminder that you don't win by demonizing people who aren't like you. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important, especially for people of faith, to remember that you cannot demonize people who don't believe the same way you do, because it's false. We're all just human beings. We're all just finding truth and trying to figure this thing out. And that was very personal to me as well. If you go beyond faith, fatherhood, Finding Nemo was very personal. I had young kids at that time going through this whole thing of independence. When do you let them explore independence? When do you hold on tight? So that, I cried deeply during Finding Nemo, because I had kids right about that age. So fatherhood obviously is going to be a big one for me. And then on a lesser emotional level, sports sometimes, especially basketball movies, because I played a lot of basketball growing up, had a scholarship to play in college, and Hoosiers was kind of that for me growing up. I was just like, I'm there. Like, it was all about me. You know what I mean? Like, so there are kind of different areas of life that I find very personal, when I watch some of these movies. So
I guess I just haven't lived that interesting of a life that anybody would make a movie about it. So
you're just waiting for the podcasting movie?
That's on me. That's not on anybody.
How has nobody made a good YouTube/podcasting movie yet? Like, how has nobody made like the Digital Star movie? I guess Kevin Smith did a little bit. Tried to make some of that with some of the stuff that he's done. But
I found the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World very personal.
There you go.
It reminded me of the time I had to fight my new girlfriend's exes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very nicely done. There you go, Frank. Thank you so much for allowing us to jump off of your very personal story and kind of tell our own.
I wish I would have had a better answer, but I just can't.
I thought your answer was great. No, and I think your answer is one that a lot of people can identify with. So, no, I wouldn't sell your answer short on that one. If you'd like to get your Sift Quest in, you can tweet at us. I'm at Aaron Dicer. Andrew is at FlickFreaks. You can also email us feedback@siftpop.com. That works as well. All right, before we finish out this podcast, of course, we got to do a little bit of buried treasure. Andrew, what's that one thing in pop culture that you want to make sure people know about?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to let you decide, comic book or video game?
Ooh. Let's go with comic book, because I think that happens less, and you can say video game for another time.
All right. Funny enough, they're both based on the same property.
Oh, okay.
The comic books are called Fables. And the video game is called The Wolf Among Us.
Is the author called Aesop?
No. Funny enough, though, what it is, it's the premise of this is all the Grimm fairy tale characters, like before they were, taken over by Disney, like Beauty and the Beast and the Big Bad Wolf and stuff, they had to leave their mystical world and come live in our world. So now they're all like living in New York now, except they can't bring anything with them. So, like, if you were, say, Snow White, or Cinderella is a better example. I don't know if she's in there or not. But, a Disney princess, they can't bring any of their wealth with them. So now they're all living in the slums. And they all have glams over them so they look human. And if they can't afford a glam, then they have to go live in what's called the farm, which is a just really ominous place.
Okay.
And your main character in this is Bigsby. He's the big bad wolf. And he is now a detective, making sure that all the people in this fairy tale world are behaving and not causing trouble.
Yeah.
The game is called The Wolf Among Us. It's one of the best, Telltale games.
Yeah.
It's a Telltale game.
Okay.
And it's so much fun. These are definitely not kid-friendly.
Okay.
Because it's dealing with them as they were told by the Grimms. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know, the Grimms version of a lot of these stories are pretty grotesque.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I highly recommend it. Super fun. If you don't have the time to read all, like, I think 150 comics. The video game is broken up into episodes. You can just play a 2-hour episode, take a break, play another 2-hour episodes a couple days later or something. A lot of fun.
Very cool. Very cool. So when you ask which one, you were going to talk about both anyway, either way.
but the one I'm going to recommend is the comic books, because there's a lot more depth, and there's a lot more stories being told in the comic books, whereas the video game is more centralized on one story.
Very nice. I want to mention, before I get to my buried treasure, some really great comments going on in the live chat about personal movies. Do you mind if I just mention a couple of those?
Please.
Monster Calls, which is a very personal movie. The anxiety plus the death plus the imagination says hits him really hard. Isaac said The Fighter and Warrior, anything with brothers. That's another big one. Like if you've had a brother.
I don't have brothers, man.
And yeah, that's definitely.
But I watched the UFC.
Logan is mentioned from this year. Logan hit home for me because of the family relationships in that movie are similar to mine. They continue. Yeah, when she calls him daddy for the first time, I had to cover my mouth so people couldn't hear my sobs. Such a powerful film. That's a great call. So yeah, great comments in the live chat. I wanted to bring those to your attention before we kind of close out here. Yeah. As far as my buried treasure goes, I'm finally going to talk about Dear White People. I finally got a chance to get all the way through that a couple weeks ago, actually, and I've been kind of processing my thoughts because I didn't know what I wanted to say about it, other than to say you should watch it. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I want to say about Dear White People. Of course, deals with racism, the group of black students in a black section of a college, and kind of what they're dealing with. And for me to talk about Dear White People, I think all I want to say is watch it, listen, make it part of yourself, understand the story. It's not one I think I'll ever really quote unquote review, because it's not my story. I just want to listen to it, and I want to be informed by it, and I want to take that perspective into my world and better my understanding of worlds that I haven't lived in, that I haven't existed in. And I think that's why it's so valuable in that way.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you see it?
Haven't watched it yet.
I just highly recommend just watch it, listen to it, make that perspective part of your worldview, to understand.
I've wanted to. It's just time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Time.
I hear you. Again, there's so much going on in the world of culture right now. Well, there we go. We did it, Andrew.
Huzzah!
A podcast happened. What is that? Where did that come from? It was a podcast. It was here and now it's gone. Thanks so much for joining us today for Siftpop. It is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other live and later shows on the network by following the feed at mixlr.com/studiodna. That's mixlr.com/studiodna. Didn't have a guru stop by today, but Andrew, what's something you want to plug right now?
We're trying to cover as much coming out of Comic-Con as we can right now on Flick Freaks. So if you head over to youtube.com/Flick Freaks, we just hit 45,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody out there for making that possible. You
nice.
Rock. Continue to put out Let's Plays, reviews, reactions. We post the Siftpop over there on Flick Freaks a couple days later. We're just trying to keep up with stuff.
I think I would promote pretty much the same thing. Go check out my YouTube. It's Your Movie Friend. Give a sub that way. I'd appreciate it. I have started actually going to some press screenings, even though they're quite a distance away, and so I'm getting my reviews out even earlier so that you can check out those reviews before the movie opens, those kind of things. So I'm enjoying doing that. I would also recommend going, and if you are able to support Studio DNA, we do some really fun stuff on the pre-show for this that is only available to those Studio DNA supporters, including this week we reviewed Valerian.
Yep.
So, and I don't know if we talked about that during the podcast, but we actually did a review of Valerian, the city of 1,000 planets. No, wait, the planet of 1,000 cities?
City of 1,000 planets.
But you can check out that review as part of the pre-show if you are a supporter, again, at Studio DNA Patreon. So that's patreon.com/Studio DNA. Huge thanks, by the way, to everybody who is supporting there. Support starts at $3 a month. Comes with some pretty fun perks. There are a lot of ways to connect with the podcast. You can do it at SoundCloud. You can tweet at us, iTunes comments and ratings. Or you can email us at feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like this podcast too, so make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier than traversing the English Channel during the war. Spoiler chat for this week's movie should be up next in your podcast feed, and we will see you back next week for Atomic Blonde and maybe the Emoji Movie.